what we're talking about here is really trying to hold people accountable. And it's really difficult to hold people accountable if it's not clear on which things they need to be held accountable for. So getting back to the SMART goals, those are individualized too, is here's a particular team member's responsibilities. And that's defined in their role. But also you've kind of built consensus and agreed to in a meeting or something like that. Here's the deliverable or the action item coming out of the meeting. It's measurable. How are we going to know for certain whether it's been accomplished or not, whether it's producing a document, if it's making a certain number of phone calls, but it's a very clearly defined deliverable of what the individual is required to do with a very clear time frame, and it has to be realistic too. These are all kind of components of SMART goals, and so what you're striving for is something that all parties can kind of point to at the end of the day and say, hey, this is what we all agreed was going to be accomplished. And then you can have something to look at and point to if it was or wasn't accomplished. So half the battle of people pulling their weight is, do they know what that means? And are they supported to do that too, right? As a leader, you have to make sure that each team member has all the resources, knowledge, and skills that they need in order to accomplish the task that's in front of them. So you need to set your team up for success and make sure that you're not giving someone a task that they're not equipped to handle. And maybe there's someone else on the team that's better equipped to handle that task. Now, at the end of the day, if everyone's agreed to a task or deliverable and it's not met, that makes it a much easier conversation to have of, hey, we all agreed, you agreed that you were going to have this accomplished by this date. Hey, we're past that date and it's not done. That's a much easier conversation to have. And it makes it less personal too, right? And so if you get to that point, I think then you can either look at improving the performance of the individual. Maybe that person just had some stuff come up in their life, or they've got more schoolwork than they thought that they were going to have, and they're not able to fulfill that role. You might need to reassign some of that work. You might need to better support that person. That person also may have just kind of run into a block somewhere of, oh, I didn't understand how to do this, or I didn't know what was being asked of me. And so you can look for different ways to support. But if the person still can't perform the tasks that were assigned to them, then you may have to just look at reassigning some of that work. In a business, you would put someone on a performance improvement plan. In a chapter in a team environment, in school, I don't know that you have that option. But in a professional setting, you would put someone on a formal performance improvement plan in which you would agree, the manager and the employee would agree on certain steps that the employee would take to improve their performance. And if that wasn't done, there would typically be consequences for that.
So challenging thing with student groups, because everyone's busy, everyone has tons of courses and responsibilities, and it's also kind of hard to create a culture of accountability when the group's president or project manager or leader is kind of just another student. They don't have a lot of superiority over the other students, and it can be hard to kind of motivate people to pull their weight when they don't feel like there really is someone who's that much above them. So something we've started doing at the U of A is sending out midterm and end of term self-evaluations. So they're pretty quick, just an online form that people can kind of, a couple just rank themselves on how much they took initiative, how much they contributed in meetings, things like that. And then just a couple short answer questions on what they feel they can improve on, what they feel they were doing really well. And I think just having, it doesn't necessarily have to be in that format, but just some form of reflection every once in a while on how you've been doing. So then it's not you telling people they aren't pulling their weight, it's more they get to come to the realization themselves that they might not be doing as much work as they could be. And I find that's a lot more effective than just being told to do more work. The other kind of thing we've started doing is one-on-one meetings, which seems to be helping quite a bit because sometimes people just aren't too sure what they should even be working on and they just need a bit more guidance. So having one-on-one meetings can kind of help address those gaps of where people need guidance and if they need extra resources or someone to help them on certain tasks. So yeah, I would really recommend reflections and one-on-one meetings.
I would just say you should ask that person if there are resources or support that they're lacking, because potentially if they're not pulling their weight, it's because they don't have everything they need. Maybe like your bridge engineer isn't getting his deliverables done because he doesn't feel like he knows what he's doing and he doesn't want to ask, but maybe providing those people an opportunity to speak and making sure that you're looking at what's going on around them and what might be causing them to not pull their weight is really important.